What if I told you that the moment your world shatters is the exact moment God is doing His greatest work? When everything feels lost, your faith is about to be tested like never before. Will you crumble or rise? When everything in your life feels like it is falling apart, and you stand on the edge of despair, you face the most crucial decision you will ever make. Will you trust God? Or will you give in to fear and doubt? The truth that many never understand is that trusting God when your world is collapsing is not about having a perfect faith, but about choosing Him despite the chaos around you. You must realize that God's trustworthiness does not depend on your circumstances, but on His eternal nature. Romans 8:28 reminds you that all things work together for good, for those who love God, even when you cannot see how that can be true when everything is broken. The first and most urgent step in trusting God during times of devastation is to surrender control, because you will never have full control, and clinging to that illusion will only deepen your suffering. God is sovereign, and when you surrender your plans, your fears, and your understanding to Him, you open the door to a peace that passes all human comprehension. Many people make the mistake of equating trust with feeling confident or having everything figured out. But trust is an act of the will. It is a decision to believe in God's goodness and His plan. Even when your emotions scream otherwise, the enemy will try to convince you that your suffering is punishment, that God has forgotten you. But Scripture pulls back the curtain on that lie. Jeremiah 29:11 tells you that God's plans are for your welfare and not for evil, and that He has a future full of hope prepared for you. This means your current pain is not the end of the story, but part of a greater narrative only God fully understands. Next, you must listen carefully for the secret voice of God amid the noise of your troubles. This voice is often quiet and subtle, but it is there. Psalm 34:18 promises that the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those crushed in spirit. Your suffering is not a sign of God's absence, but an invitation into a deeper relationship with Him. You are not alone, even if it feels that way. Your pain is a gateway to divine intimacy. The third truth is the incredible power of faith to turn your suffering into a testimony. Your pain does not have to be wasted. Corinthians 129 tells us that God's grace is sufficient and His power is made perfect in weakness. When you feel weak and hopeless, that is when God's strength can work most powerfully through you. This does not mean the pain disappears immediately, but that God uses your brokenness to build something greater within you. Trusting God means walking forward even when you do not see the way. The hardest part of trusting God is often fighting the secret enemy that lurks in your heart: doubt, fear, and bitterness. These feelings creep in slowly, trying to steal your peace and weaken your faith. Hebrews 111 teaches that faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Your faith must look beyond your current devastation to the unseen reality. God is preparing. Faith is a daily choice made through prayer, meditation on Scripture, and obedience, even when you cannot understand the outcome. Finally, you must understand the secret purpose behind your trials. If you refuse to trust God when everything falls apart, you risk not only losing your peace, but missing the divine breakthrough God is working toward. Trials are not punishment, but tools God uses to remove what is not of Him, to deepen your dependence, and to prepare you for a higher calling. Revelation 3:10 promises God will keep you from the hour of trial coming on the world. This promise means He will also be with you through your personal storms. So the challenge is simple but urgent. Will you choose to trust God in the darkness, or will you let fear and doubt dictate your future? Trusting God when everything falls apart is the test that distinguishes shallow belief from faith, built on the rock of God's unchanging character. Your faith is proven not when life is easy, but when storms rage around you. The lesson from this is clear: surrender control, listen closely to God's voice, lean into faith, and trust the process, even when it hurts. Your brokenness is not your defeat, but the beginning of a new story. God is weaving a story of redemption and glory through your suffering. The question remains: will you trust the God who holds the universe in His hands, even when your own life feels like it is falling apart? The choice is yours, and it will shape not only your present, but your eternity.